My sister treated me like her minion at her wedding, so I took back my gift and left it in ruins. Did you know that the average person attends approximately 8 weddings in their lifetime? I said to no one in particular, aggressively wiping down the counter of my cafe. 8 chances to wear uncomfortable shoes, eat dry chicken, and question every life choice that led you to that particular folding chair. My barista, Liam, glanced up from the espresso machine. Specific number for a random Tuesday thought. You okay, boss? I wasn't. The gilt-edged invitation propped against the register had been mocking me for weeks. Matilda Sanders and Richard Wellington III request your presence. Matilda, my younger sister by 3 years. The golden child. The one whose achievements merited framed photos and refrigerator real estate. Whose middle school pottery still occupied the mantelpiece at our parents' house, while my James Beard nomination certificate was stuffed in a drawer somewhere, probably serving as a coaster for one of Dad's whiskey glasses. I'm fine, I said, scrubbing harder at a non-existent stain, just contemplating the socio-economic implications of destination weddings. Ah, Liam nodded knowingly. Your sister's Aruba extravaganza. Santorini, I corrected. Because nothing says I love you like forcing your closest friends and family to spend $3,000 on airfare. The door chimed, saving me from further wedding talk as the morning rush began at Brood Awakening, the cafe I'd built from nothing in Cleveland's trendy Ohio City neighborhood. For the next few hours, I lost myself in the comforting rhythm of coffee and conversation, the steady routine that had been my salvation since realizing, at the tender age of 24, that no matter what I achieved, I would always be playing second fiddle in the Sanders family orchestra. It wasn't always this way. There was a time brief, rose-colored in memory when I thought I was enough, before Matilda was born, when I was the only daughter, the center of attention, before the refrain of, Anna, why can't you be more like your sister, became the soundtrack of my adolescence, growing up. The contrast was stark. Matilda was blonde, petite, and perpetually perky, with an uncanny ability to cry on command. I was dark-haired, tall and awkward, with a stubborn sense of justice and an inability to hide my emotions. She played the flute and made the cheer squad. I played field hockey and started a debate club. She dated the quarterback. I dated the girl who photographed the games for the school paper. When Matilda got caught sneaking in past curfew, it was teenagers will be teenagers. When I came home 15 minutes late from the library, it was a 2-week grounding and a lecture on responsibility. When Matilda dropped out of college to find herself in Europe, our parents funded her soul-searching for 3 years. When I asked for a small loan to start my cafe after graduating with honors in business, Dad suggested I get a real job first to prove I was serious. Still, I persisted, built my business, made a life, and tried God. How I tried to be a supportive sister. I attended every showcase, celebrated every minor achievement, sent thoughtful gifts for birthdays and holidays. In return, I got last-minute invitations to events. Oh, we didn't think you'd be interested. Comments about my perpetual singlehood. Don't worry, some people are just meant to be independent. And backhanded compliments about my cafe. It's so cute how you've made a little business out of your hobby. But Matilda's wedding was proving to be the final straw in a haystack that had been crushing me for 26 years. She wants me to what? I nearly dropped the phone into my morning oatmeal. It was 3 weeks before the wedding, and my mother was calling with yet another small favor from the bride. It's not a big deal, Anna. Mom sighed, the familiar note of disappointment already creeping into her voice. Matilda just needs you to pick up all the welcome bags from the printer and assemble them before you fly out. There are only 65. Mom, I have a business to run. I'm already closing the cafe for a week to attend this destination wedding that I had to pay for myself. I can't just... This is your sister's special day, she interrupted, the warning clear in her tone. Everyone is pitching in. Your father's handling the bar tab. I'm coordinating with the planner, and you're doing welcome bags. That seems like a fair distribution. The fact that Dad's pitching in amounted to writing a check while mine involved hours of physical labor wasn't lost on me. but I bit my tongue. I'd learned long ago that pointing out the disparities only led to being labeled difficult or jealous of Matilda. Fine, I conceded. Text me the printer's address. Perfecto. And one more thing, Matilda was hoping you could bring your lemon tarts. She remembered how much Richard loved them at Christmas, and she thought it would be a special touch for the rehearsal dinner. You want me to bake 65 servings of my signature dessert, which takes hours to prepare, pack them in my carry-on, and fly them across the Atlantic. Well, when you put it that way, it sounds like you don't want to do it, Mom sniffed. It's not that I don't want to, it's that it's physically impossible, I explained, feeling the familiar pressure building behind my eyes. The customs alone. Fine. I'll tell her you said no. She'll be disappointed, but she's used to that with you. And there it was, the guilt trip, right on schedule. I didn't say no. I backpedaled. I just need to figure out the logistics. Maybe I can prepare most components here and assemble them there. That's my helpful Anna, Mom brightened immediately. I knew we could count on you, after hanging up. I rested my forehead against the cool counter of my kitchen. This was the pattern Matilda makes an unreasonable request. I point out its unreasonableness. Mom makes me feel guilty for not being accommodating enough. I cave, and everyone acts like I should be grateful for the opportunity to be inconvenienced. But this time, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that things might be different. This time, I was reaching my breaking point. The resort in Santorini was as picturesque as the brochure promised, whitewashed buildings cascading down the cliffside. The Aegean Sea, a hypnotic blue below. It was the kind of place Instagram influencers would kill for, which made sense given Matilda's side hustle as a lifestyle curator with 245,000 followers. I'd been on the island less than 3 hours when the first crisis hit. Anna, thank God you're here. Matilda burst into my room without knocking. Already in her third outfit of the day, a flowing white caftan that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The welcome bags are all wrong. Wrong how? I asked, still unpacking my suitcase. I followed your instructions exactly. The tissue paper is ecru, not cream. She thrust a bag at me, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing at the offending paper. They looked cheap. I stared at her, trying to process the emergency. Matilda, I don't think anyone will notice the difference between ecru and cream. I'll notice. Her voice rose an octave, eyes widening in that familiar pre-tantrum expression I'd seen since she was 3. This is my wedding, Anna. The most important day of my life. Don't you care at all? Before I could respond, a smooth, aristocratic voice interjected from the doorway. Darling, perhaps we should leave Anna to settle in. She's had a long flight. Richard Wellington III was exactly what you'd expect from someone with a Roman numeral in his name, tall, preppy, with the confident air of a man who's never had to check his bank balance before making a purchase. His family owned a chain of luxury hotels, which explained how Matilda had scored this venue at a family discount, meaning our parents were only paying a small fortune instead of an obscene one. But the bags, Matilda pouted, are lovely, Richard assured her, placing a calming hand on her shoulder. No one will notice the tissue paper color when they're focused on the Moet miniatures and artisanal Greek olive oil. Matilda hesitated, then deflated slightly. I suppose you're right. But Anna, she fixed me with a stern look. You'll need to help the wedding planner redistribute everything tomorrow morning. Actually, I was planning to. Great, the planner will find you at breakfast. She was already moving toward the door. Crisis averted. Oh, and Mom wants you to join us for dinner at the Cliffside restaurant at 7. Don't be late. And maybe wear something colorful. Her eyes swept over my travel outfit, black jeans, and a simple white tee, with the subtle disdain she reserved for my entire wardrobe. After they left, I flopped back on the bed, staring at the whitewashed ceiling, 1 day down, 6 to go. The welcome dinner was, predictably, an exercise in subtle humiliation. Anna, we saved you a seat. Mom waved from a long table overlooking the caldera, where the sunset painted the sky in breathtaking shades of pink and gold. The saved seat was wedged between my 7-year-old cousin, who was deeply involved in a Nintendo Switch game, and my great-aunt Mildred, who was hard of hearing and had strong opinions about my lack of husband. The rest of the family was strategically placed around Matilda and Richard at the center, with our parents flanking them like royal attendants. You could have sat anywhere, you know. Dad called down the table after I'd settled in. We're all family here. Oh, I don't mind, I replied, plastering on a smile as artificial as Matilda's eyelashes. Aunt Mildred was just telling me about her bunion surgery. Fifth one, Mildred announced proudly to no one in particular. Doctor says he's never seen such persistent bunions. Matilda caught my eye and smirked before turning her attention back to Richard's mother, a willowy woman with the kind of surgical enhancements that whispered money rather than shouted it. Throughout dinner, I watched as Matilda held court, her laughter perfectly timed, her anecdotes carefully calibrated to charm her future in-laws. She'd always had this gift, knowing exactly how to make people feel special, while simultaneously ensuring she remained the center of attention. Anna owns a cafe in Cleveland, I heard Mom telling Mrs. Wellington. It's a cute little place. How quaint, Mrs. Wellington replied with the polite interest of someone discussing a child's crayon drawing. And is it doing well? It's actually been featured in Food and Wine, I interjected, passing Aunt Mildred the salt she hadn't asked for. And we were nominated for a James Beard last year. Oh, how lovely. Mrs. Wellington nodded, clearly having no idea what a James Beard nomination meant. Matilda was telling me about your talent for baking. Perhaps you could share some recipes with our hotel pastry chefs as a hobby, of course. Before I could clarify that my business grossed over $500,000 annually, nothing to sneeze at for a cute little place, Matilda chimed in. Anna makes the most divine lemon tarts. Remember, Richard, from Christmas. Richard nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely scrumptious, best I've ever had. You simply must make them for the rehearsal dinner, Mrs. Wellington declared, as if bestowing a great honor. Actually, I began, I wasn't able to bring. She's already agreed to, Matilda interrupted brightly. Haven't you, Anna? You're going to use the resort kitchen tomorrow. I blinked, ambushed yet again. I spoke with the head chef, Mom confirmed. He's expecting you at 7 a.m. The familiar weight of obligation settled on my shoulders. Great, I managed. Looking forward to it. That's our Anna, Dad beamed, always ready to pitch in. As the evening progressed, I became increasingly invisible, sipping my wine and fielding Aunt Mildred's invasive questions about my reproductive plans while Matilda glowed under the admiring gazes of both families. By the time dessert arrived, I'd been volunteered for 3 more pre-wedding tasks and had somehow agreed to let Matilda's friend Cressida, a self-proclaimed aura stylist to the stars, give me a makeover before the ceremony. I excused myself early, claiming jet lag, and retreated to my room where I called the one person who would understand my frustration. Let me guess. Liam's voice came through the phone, comforting even from thousands of miles away. They've got you making balloon animals while dressed as a clown for the rehearsal dinner. Worse, I groaned. 65 lemon tarts by tomorrow afternoon. And apparently, I'm now in charge of steaming all the bridesmaids' dresses. Jesus, Anna, you run a business, not a servant agency. Try telling that to my family. I sighed, kicking off my shoes. How's the cafe? Still standing? That food critic from the Chronicle came by today. What Sergio Martinez was there and I missed it. Don't worry. I charmed him with your cold brew technique and sent him off with a box of those cardamom buns you made before you left. He seemed impressed. I should have been thrilled Sergio Martinez could put a restaurant on the map with one good review, but instead, I felt a familiar twinge of resentment. Once again, I was missing an important moment at my cafe because of Matilda. Thanks, Liam, you're a lifesaver. No problem, boss. Hey, when you get back, we should talk about that expansion idea. I've been running some numbers and a knock at my door interrupted him. Hold that thought, I said, patting across the room. Someone's here. I opened the door to find Cressida, Matilda's college roommate and maid of honor, standing there with a garment bag and a determined expression. Sorry, gotta go, I told Liam quickly. Apparently, the makeover has been moved up to tonight. By the day of the wedding, I had baked 130 lemon tarts. The first batch wasn't vibrant enough. Steamed 27 dresses because the bridesmaids kept changing their minds about what to wear to various events. Assembled and redistributed all 65 welcome bags with new cream tissue paper flown in from Athens, and given up any pretense of enjoying myself. I'd also been relegated to unofficial wedding staff, despite technically being a bridesmaid. Matilda had asked me to be in the wedding party as an afterthought, after our mother pointed out that excluding her only sister might look bad to the Wellingtons. "Oh, Anna, there you are!" Matilda swept into the bridal suite where I was carefully arranging her veil. She looked stunning. Of course, a custom Vera Wang gown that cost more than my first year of business expenses. "I need you to run to Richard's suite and pick up his cufflinks. He forgot them." I'd been running errands all morning while the other bridesmaids lounged around drinking champagne and taking selfies. My own bridesmaid dress, a hideous seafoam green that matched no one else's in the wedding party, was still hanging unpressed in my room. "Matilda, the ceremony starts in an hour. I'm not even dressed yet." "It'll just take 5 minutes," she insisted, already turning her attention to the makeup artist. "Besides, you can get ready in no time. It's not like you wear makeup anyway." One of the bridesmaids, Madison or Mackenzie, I could never keep them straight, gave me a pitying look. "I can go if you—" "No, it's fine," I cut her off, forcing a smile. "I'll be right back." As I left the suite, I heard Matilda's voice floating after me. "I don't know why she's being so difficult. It's not like she has a date to impress or anything." The comment stung, but I was too tired to feel the full impact. This was just another drop in a bucket that had been filling for 26 years. Richard's suite was at the opposite end of the resort, because of course it was, by the time I retrieved the cufflinks and returned to the bridal party. I had exactly 30 minutes to transform myself from sweaty errand girl to presentable bridesmaid. I rushed to my room, threw on the unflattering dress, and did the best I could with my hair and makeup. The result was adequate. Not that it mattered. I knew my role in today's production was to blend into the background, a walking prop in Matilda's perfect day. The ceremony itself was admittedly beautiful. Even I, jaded as I was, felt a lump in my throat as Richard and Matilda exchanged vows against the backdrop of the Aegean Sea. Their love seemed genuine, which was the one redeeming factor in this whole extravaganza. Whatever else she was, Matilda truly loved Richard, and he her. It was at the reception that everything fell apart. I should have known something was wrong when I couldn't find my name card on the family table, after a few minutes of awkward searching. The wedding planner, a harried woman named Sophia, who'd been giving me sympathetic looks all week, approached with an apologetic expression. "Anna, I've been looking for you. There's been a slight adjustment to the seating plan." She led me to the furthest corner of the reception space, to a table clearly designated for distant acquaintances and obligation invites. My seat was between Richard's ancient great-uncle who kept falling asleep mid-sentence and a college friend of Matilda's who I'd met exactly once, 8 years ago. "There must be some mistake," I said, staring at my name card. "I'm the bride's sister." Sophia bit her lip. "It was a specific request from the bride. I'm so sorry." As the implications sank in, a cold clarity washed over me. This wasn't an oversight or a last-minute change. This was deliberate. Matilda had intentionally separated me from the family, hidden me away at a table where I wouldn't be in any of the important photos, wouldn't be part of any meaningful moments. I looked across the reception to the family table, where my parents sat with Richard's family, champagne flutes raised in celebration. They hadn't even noticed I was missing. Something snapped inside me, a lifetime of swallowing hurt, of making myself smaller to accommodate Matilda's need to shine, of accepting scraps of affection and telling myself it was enough. It all crystallized into a single, incandescent moment of clarity. I was done. With a calm I didn't know I possessed, I walked directly to the family table. Conversations paused as I approached, faces turning toward me with varying degrees of surprise and confusion. "Anna," Mom's smile was tight. "Is something wrong?" "Yes," I said simply. "My seat seems to have been misplaced. I was wondering if there was room here, with my family." An uncomfortable silence fell. Matilda turned slowly to face me, her perfect smile never wavering. "Oh, Anna, the tables were so complicated with all the last-minute changes. I'm sure you understand." Her tone was syrupy sweet, her eyes cold. "Besides, I thought you'd enjoy sitting with Uncle Herbert. He's in the food industry too. He owned 3 McDonald's franchises before he retired." A few awkward titters around the table, My father shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. I see, I said, still unnaturally calm. So it was intentional to seat your only sister, who has spent the past week working as your unpaid personal assistant, at the furthest table from the family. Anna, Mom hissed, smile frozen in place. This isn't the time or place. When is the time, Mom? When is the place? Because for 29 years, it's never been the right time to talk about how you treat me compared to Matilda. Mrs. Wellington cleared her throat delicately. Perhaps we should give the sisters a moment. No need, I interrupted, my voice carrying more than I intended. Several nearby tables had gone quiet, guests pretending not to eavesdrop. I just wanted to give my sister her wedding gift before I go. Go, Matilda's perfect brow furrowed. The reception just started. Yes, and I have a business to run, but first… I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I found this while I was in your room yesterday, picking up the list of photo groupings you wanted. The color drained from Matilda's face as she recognized what I was holding. I unfolded the paper, a printed email, and cleared my throat. Dear Cressida, I read aloud. You won't believe what Mom and Dad did now. They're covering Anna's flight to the wedding after all, even though I specifically told them not to. I've worked so hard to keep her involvement minimal, and they're undermining me. I mean, it's not like she has anything better to do. Who's going to notice if her little coffee shop is closed for a week, but I wanted her at the singles table with the other sad sacks. Not making awkward conversation with Richard's family. At least I put her in that hideous dress that makes her look like a seasick giraffe. Maybe she'll get the hint and leave early. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear the waves crashing on the rocks below, the distant tinkling of glasses from the other side of the reception. You went through my things, Matilda finally managed, her voice high and thin. It was on your desk, next to the seating chart you asked me to proofread. I folded the email and placed it on the table. Interesting reading, especially the part where you told Cressida that you've been telling Richard's family I have a drinking problem to explain why I shouldn't give a toast. My father's head snapped up at that, his expression thunderous, not at Matilda, of course, but at me for causing a scene. Anna, that's enough, he growled. You're right, Dad, it is enough. 29 years of being treated like an inconvenience, of having my achievements dismissed, of being volunteered for every thankless task while Matilda gets praised for showing up. It's more than enough. I turned to address the table at large, beyond caring who heard me. For those of you who don't know me well, I'm Anna Sanders. I own a cafe in Cleveland that was nominated for a James Beard Award last year. I employ 15 people. I have a waiting list for my private dining events. I am not a sad sack. And my little coffee shop matters to a lot of people. Anna, please, Mom's voice quavered, her eyes darting anxiously around at the watching guests. I'm leaving now, I continued, ignoring her. Congratulations on your wedding, Matilda. I hope your marriage brings you joy. But I won't be available for any more family events until there's a sincere apology and a commitment to treat me with basic respect. I turned to go, but Matilda's voice, sharp with humiliation, stopped me. You're just jealous, she hissed, abandoning all pretense of composure. You've always been jealous because I'm the one who got married, who has a real life, while you're stuck making coffee and muffins for strangers. I turned back slowly. No, Matilda, I'm not jealous. I'm tired. There's a difference. I met her gaze steadily. And for what it's worth, I think Richard is a good man who truly loves you. I hope you appreciate that gift, because it's worth more than all of this. I gestured around at the lavish reception. More than approval or attention or Instagram likes. With that, I walked away, head high, ignoring my mother's pleading calls and my father's angry demands to come back. In my room, I packed quickly, called for a taxi, and was at the airport within the hour, as I waited for the next flight to Athens and from there, the long journey back to Cleveland. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members, some angry, some confused, a few supportive. The only one I answered was from Richard. I'm so sorry, Anna. I had no idea about any of this, for what it's worth. Your cafe sounds amazing and those lemon tarts were genuinely the best I've ever had. I wrote back. Take care of yourself, Richard. And maybe consider why you didn't notice how your wife treats her sister. As the plane took off, I watched Santorini recede into the distance, its picture-perfect white buildings shrinking until they disappeared altogether. I felt lighter than I had in years, unburdened by the weight of expectations I could never meet and affection I had to earn while Matilda received it freely. 6 months later, Brood Awakening was bustling on a crisp October morning. The expansion Liam and I had discussed was complete. We'd taken over the adjacent storefront and added a bakery showcase featuring my pastries, including the now famous lemon tarts that had earned us a glowing review from Sergio Martinez. "Boss," Liam called from the counter, "you've got visitors?" I looked up from the espresso machine to see my parents standing awkwardly by the door, looking out of place among the hip, young clientele. Mom clutched her designer purse like a lifeline. Dad's eyes roamed the space with grudging approval. It was the first time I'd seen them since Santorini. There had been calls, of course angry at first, then pleading, then resigned. I'd responded with brief texts, letting them know I was safe, but needed space. Matilda hadn't contacted me at all. "Mom, Dad," I greeted them, wiping my hands on my apron. "This is a surprise." "We were in town for a medical conference," Dad explained, his discomfort evident. "Thought we'd see this cafe we've heard so much about." "From the article," Mom added quickly, "in the Times, about the best cafes in the Midwest. We saw it and, well, we were proud." The admission seemed to cost her something, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "Thank you," I said simply. "Would you like a tour? We just expanded." As I showed them around, explaining our direct trade coffee sourcing and the local artists whose work decorated our walls, I could see them struggling to reconcile this successful business with their image of my little hobby. Dad asked thoughtful questions about profit margins and growth projections. Mom admired the vintage decor and commented on the diverse clientele. When we settled at a corner table with cappuccinos and a plate of my pastries, the conversation turned inevitably to Santorini. "We owe you an apology," Dad began, uncharacteristically subdued. "The way things happened at the wedding, it wasn't right." "It wasn't just the wedding," I replied calmly. "It was a lifetime of favoritism that came to a head that day." Mom flinched but didn't deny it. "We never meant to make you feel less valued, Anna." "But you did. And the thing is, I don't think you even realized how obvious it was, how much extra effort Matilda had to put into pushing me aside because you'd already laid the groundwork for her." Dad looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. "Has she contacted you?" he asked instead. "No, but Richard has. We've had coffee a few times when he's been in Cleveland for business." I hesitated, then added, "They're in counseling. Apparently, the wedding situation made him see some patterns he wasn't comfortable with." My parents exchanged a look I couldn't quite interpret. "And us?" Mom asked tentatively. "Where do we stand?" I considered the question, stirring my cappuccino thoughtfully. "That depends on whether anything is actually going to change." "We'd like to try," Dad said, with unusual humility. "Starting with coming to your holiday baking workshop next month. Your mother saw it on your website." "You checked my website?" Mom nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. "Regularly, since Santorini, we wanted to understand your world better." It wasn't a grand declaration or a tearful apology, but from my parents, it was significant an acknowledgement that my world had value, that my life and work deserved their attention. "The workshop is already sold out," I said, watching their faces fall. "But I could add 2 spots, on one condition." "Name it," Dad said immediately. "If Matilda ever wants to reconcile, it has to be her reaching out. I won't pretend everything is fine just to make family gatherings more comfortable." They nodded, accepting these terms with unexpected grace. As they prepared to leave, Mom hesitated, then pulled me into a brief, awkward hug. "Your cafe really is lovely, Anna. Not cute or quaint, truly impressive." It wasn't everything I'd ever wanted to hear from her, but it was a start. After they left, Liam sidled up beside me at the counter. "So, the parental units finally made a pilgrimage. How'd it go?" "Surprisingly not terrible," I admitted. "Small steps." "And the prodigal sister?" "No word yet, but that's okay." I surveyed my cafe, the space I'd created, the community I'd built, the life I'd chosen. "I'm doing just fine on my own." And I was. The irony wasn't lost on me that in finally standing up for myself and refusing to be the invisible sister any longer, I'd become more visible than ever, not just to my family but to myself. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't about hurting those who hurt you. It's about reclaiming your own story and writing yourself back into the center of it. That night, as I locked up the cafe, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Anna, it's Matilda. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding. Tomorrow, perhaps, or the next day, on my terms, in my time. For now, I had lemon tarts to perfect and a life to enjoy, one where I was neither invisible nor secondary, but brilliantly, unapologetically center stage.